loss of relationship, friendship, platonic or romantic, it doesn't matter. I feel like everyone has gone through it at least once. And if you haven't gone through it yet, you will, because scientifically, endings is inevitable through death. No one can ever escape death. It's the period at the end of our life sentence. And spiritually, endings is inevitable because when you grow up and you mature and you age, you change. Some of those parts, it doesn't remain compatible with the people that you love. So you grow out of these relationships and friendships. And I feel like that is what sucks the most about it, because it's not in your control. It's how do you navigate through it?
Hey guys, welcome to my room. And as you can tell from the little epilogue that played earlier, today's topic, we're going to talk about the inevitable themes and topics of life, which is grief and heartbreak and endings. And as intense and potentially sad that may sound, I feel like throughout my journey so far as a fresh 21-year-old, I feel like I have learned a handful of really good advice and lessons that might help anyone that's watching this navigate through these deep feelings of grief and heartbreak and just the situational circumstances of endings, whether that's a breakup, a relationship breakup with your partner, or with your friends, a breakup with your friends. It's a heavy feeling to go through. And so tune in. Today we are painting this beautiful painting that I don't want to show y'all the finished product. I mean, you can see it behind me, but today's video we're going to be focusing on my little journey with painting this mural canvas behind me. And just a quick little story about it. I started it a couple weeks ago. I only started a little part of it, as you can see in the video later on. And I never really got to finish it because of life and finals as a college student. But recently I've been feeling a lot of grief coming up because of certain endings in a couple of my relationships. And so I've been feeling a lot of sadness and a lot of mixed bagged emotions with that. And so that's how this painting came to be. I was feeling a lot and I needed a way to express it. And so that's going to be something we're going to be talking about. That's going to be one of my advices that I'm going to be talking about today. And so I hope you tune in for however long you want to tune in, and I hope you enjoy. I'm gonna first start off with something that usually happens at the latter end of the half of the whole grieving process. I don't know if you've ever seen the chart, but it's like denial, anger, depression, maybe I'll show y'all somewhere here. I think a really big part of grief and endings and heartbreak is the circumstance of it. And as a very optimistic person, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt in believing that, oh, like, maybe I'll stay in this relationship, in this friendship for one more month and see if things change, and then things end up not changing and I just keep on gaslighting myself. And I think one thing that was very difficult for me to understand and to really grasp was the concept of just acceptance and accepting people for where they're at and not expecting anything more of them, and not expecting that there's this whole other side of them that I need, when it's just me projecting what I need onto them. And so I found it really hard to just accept the fact that when something is over, it's over. Because in my mind, I'm like, okay, like maybe things can end now, but maybe there's potential for it in the future, and that would keep me stuck in a repetitive loop of, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna pause my life and wait until they come back into my life. And most of the time that's not the case. So with acceptance, it's just putting down this narrative or erasing this narrative in your head that people will change for you or circumstances will change. And what I really like to repeat to myself and use as an affirmation for myself whenever I get into that endless rut in my mind is, you cannot hold on to something that never intended to work out. Let me repeat that again. You can't hold on to something that never intended to be held onto and to be worked out. A lot of relationships in your life, friendships, romantic relationships, and maybe sometimes even family, it is like written in the stars for the relationships to not work out. And by holding on to these expectations or false narratives of these people, or just the potential of people, it can leave you feeling stuck and stagnant, and you don't allow yourself to evolve to the person that you want to be, you don't allow your community to evolve to become a community that is able to support you and your highest self. Grief is ultimately unexpressible love. When you really think about what that is, when you are grieving someone, when you're just feeling so sad and so depressed because someone is no longer in your life, when you take away the veil of emotions, you're grieving it because you can't express the love that you feel for that person anymore. A prime example of this is when someone that you love passes away, and you just feel a lot of grief and sadness, and you do feel grief and sadness because that person has passed away, and like you're no longer going to see them again. But ultimately, if you look underneath that, it's because you won't be able to interact with them anymore. You won't be able to talk to them. You won't be able to engage with them anymore. And what those qualities are: engagement, communication, and just living with them, with their presence. That's love, and that's you and that person exchanging that. And so because grief, if you tune that perspective of grief is the feeling of unexpressible love, you can tap into that concept and that mind shift change and understand that, oh, okay, so if I'm feeling all these really intense emotions, especially when it comes to sadness, and it's because I can't express it to the person that I want to express it the most, maybe I can feel a little bit better if I find a gateway for me to express my emotions and feelings to. Find a gateway for me to release all of this energy to, right? So you can alchemize grief and alchemize your sadness that you feel by creating and opening yourself to ways of expression, to opportunities of expression. And whether this manifests through journaling, through creating music, through playing an instrument, through painting, through drawing, through going on walks, like anything that involves just creating and expressing yourself, like cooking, pottery, talking to friends, like anything that allows you to get the energy that you're feeling inside, the unexpressed energy, and just pour it out of yourself to something. And I'm not saying that this is going to completely get rid of the sadness and grief that you're feeling, but it will make you feel better. And expressing doesn't necessarily get rid of the feelings, but rather it allows more structure and a sense of control of where the emotions are going. Like, for example, whenever I get really sad or whenever I feel a lot of intense emotions, I get extremely overwhelmed because I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Like, I'm just feeling it, and I'm like crying, da, 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 da. And I'm like, what do I do? Like, it causes me to spiral even more because I feel like I'm not in control of my emotions, and that's something I deal with. Is I get really uncomfortable when I'm unable to control my emotions. And so by me alchemizing my emotions and my grief to painting or journaling or creating music, it gives me a sense of control on where it's going, where my emotions are going. I'm not saying I'm like controlling my emotions, like not allowing myself to feel sad, because that's a whole other thing. Like, allow yourself to feel it. Just give yourself a sense of structure and control on where it's going. I feel like that's the key point and the key takeaway I'm trying to express here. These are very heavy concepts and concepts that anyone and everyone will eventually go through in their life. And when they do appear, when they do come up, and when you are going through the rut of it, it is a lot. You feel a lot, and it's so many different emotions. If you've ever seen the graph of the journey of grief, it's like acceptance, or no, acceptance is the end. It's like denial, anger, depression, sadness, bargaining. It's like so many stages of emotions, and that is like the traditional way. But like what grief and heartbreak is like all of those stages, but at the same time. When you're going through grief, you deal with so much and so many complex emotions that personally, whenever I would go through the rut of it, I wouldn't even know what I'm feeling, because it's like I'm feeling sadness and anger all at once, and I'm like, whoa, like I don't know what to do with it. Like all of it happening, it's like everything everywhere all at once basically. And so because it's so complex and because it's so intense and it's just so much going on, rather than trying to control your emotions, I found that it is just better for you to hold space for yourself and to surrender to the flow of whenever these emotions come up. I find this part to be really important, especially to your mental health and for your sake and for your sanity, because I feel like the current culture now, like it's looked down upon to be vulnerable and be expressive and be open and be soft. Like current culture now is like, oh, like don't be sad over that person, like that person doesn't deserve it or doesn't deserve you, or like there's just a negative connotation behind feeling emotions and feeling sad and feeling heartbreak when it comes to like going through like a breakup or a friendship breakup, because of the ego, because we're so ego based. And it's so like, I feel like that just punches into your vulnerability. Like it's okay to be vulnerable and no one is judging you. Or like it's okay to be sad, it's okay to feel whatever you feel. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like you're going through a loss and you're going through a loss. It's okay to feel whatever you feel. Don't let the current culture of society navigate that and take away the beautiful concept of vulnerability and expressive heart. Like, don't let our current culture take that away from you and your right to feel whatever you want to feel. Love, the love that you feel and the love that conspired between you and the other persons that has either passed away or is just no longer in your life, that love is always there. No matter if it was a messed up circumstance or if it was a really bad fallout or if an individual has passed away, that love that conspired between you and that person is always there, and it will never go away, because love is almost like a time paradox. And how I like to think about it is, I like to imagine that one scene in Interstellar where he was going through like the black hole. For example, whenever you think back on a happy memory with any person, you always think back onto it, and whenever you think about it, you feel that joy that conspired in the past. And that same concept comes with love. Whatever was transpired, it still exists. And just because the other party isn't physically there, or that relationship isn't physically in your life anymore, doesn't mean that it dissipated. Because I firmly believe once you love somebody, that love will always be there forever. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you like love them now. I just mean like that emotions don't just dissipate. Whenever I think about any of the past friendships and relationships I've been in that's no longer in my life, or a death of a loved one, whenever I get really sad, because I think and I feel that the love is like no longer there, and like it's no longer accessible, and it's just, I always remind myself that just because that other person's gone doesn't mean that you're unable to love, or you're unable to feel that love ever again, because you do have it and you are able to tap back into it. It just recycles into the next person, relationship, or it recycles into yourself. It recycles into the little moments of love you share in the world. Like when you smile at a little kid that passes you by, or when you say hi to your neighbors, or when you help out a complete stranger, or when you say thank you or have a cute little banter with your barista. Love is everywhere. It just doesn't dissipate. It's never gone. Love is always there.